All right. Well, welcome to the Integrated Man podcast. Good to have everybody with us today. A couple of things real quick, just housekeeping items. You can find out more information about what we do at theintegratedman.life. We've got a couple of things coming up for men. We've got a 4-day retreat coming up in June of 2026 this year. Don't know if you're watching it in 2027, but June of 2026. We've also got a Boundary Waters trip coming up in July of 2026. Yeah, 2026. We do that every year. So, Boundary Waters canoe trip, if you don't know what that is. We've also got a foundations group that we do. It's, we gather anywhere from 8 to 10 men, get together on Zoom, and we go through a curriculum, talking about what are some of the foundations of our lives as men, and what are some of the things that we should get right before we start building on top of it. And there may have to be some excavation that is done in that process. So you can sign up for that, kind of apply for that as well through the website. But want to jump in. I've got Aaron Campbell with me today. Aaron and I are good friends. We have been for years, and I've done some work for Aaron as a project manager, and we'll get into all the story. But Aaron, give us a quick bio on who you are, and we'll jump right in.
It's great to be with you, Corey. Aaron Campbell is my name. Grew up in Illinois. Ended up going up to Rockford back in 1999 to the Rockford Masters Commission, which was a discipleship, training, and leadership program, kind of an internship. Ended up going on staff there and doing ministry there at the church for roughly 20 years. Throughout that time, focused a lot on the creative side of things. So both teaching students how to use various programs, as well, different aspects of discipleship and whatnot. After being there from 99 to 2017, I stepped away and started my own graphic design company, Canby Designs. And that is what I've been doing for the last 9 years. And at this point, I'm still plugged into the local church. I'm here in Kansas City. I'm still a Bears fan, though. Chiefs.
Sorry for you.
Yeah. Hey,
Last year,
there's always next year.
Good. There's always next year.
Yeah. I think
that's great.
I think the Bears on far as the Chiefs. I didn't think there was ever going to be a conflict of interest, frankly, but yeah. But the long and the short of it is, here at this point, if anything, I feel almost more involved with ministry on a personal level than I did even when working at the church. Not that there wasn't discipleship happening, not that there wasn't a lot of involvement, but here it's all self-initiated. So we have our weekly small group, met last night in our home. Every Friday morning, I meet with a group of men there at the church. We cook breakfast. We read the word, we discuss. So it's good. My business focuses on branding primarily, rebranding, logos, identity, why you do your business, what your values are. We package those things up, put them on a website, help really show who you are. So my kind of target market, if you will, are people that have started a business, are running that business, and now have kind of outgrown their brand, are more professional than they look on the surface. And I just help them move their visual professionality to catch up with where they are in the real world.
Great. And you're a husband and a father?
Yeah, I am. It'll be 20 years on August 19th of this year. My wife, whose name is Aaron, we met there in the program. She was on staff as I was coming up through the program. She came on. We ended up doing some different missions trips together and fell in love, and the rest is history. We adopted 13 years ago. It'll be in July, our son Jack. And that's been an adventure in and of itself, but he's a great kid. And who knows, he may bust in here at any moment. You never know.
That's great. Thanks for giving us that quick bio, Aaron. I want to get to your origin story. All right. So let's, go back
Mm,
before design, before ministry. I want to hear a little bit about who you were growing up.
sure. My dad was, he was third generation blacksmith. He grew up in the Chicagoland area. His dad ran a blacksmith shop in Lisle, Illinois. His dad died young from um, lung cancer. Blacksmith that smokes like a chimney. It's rough. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rough. It's a rough deal there. I think he died in his 60s. He died before I was born. But my dad bought the business from my grandma, carried that on through the 70s, doing wrought iron railing. He met my mom in the late 70s. She was a new Christian. She had been saved in a remarkable fashion and had gone straight to seminary. So she was serving as a congregational pastor in Naperville, Illinois, which is side by side. These are all Chicago suburbs. And they met, and I think their first interaction, she called him a sinner. It was just love at first sight, apparently. They got married within a couple of years there. He had a really remarkable interaction with God. Just, he had been searching. He was doing all kinds of things, yoga, meditation, transcendental meditation trips to Haiti, or maybe it was the Dominican, probably. And he had picked up this book about this Russian pilgrim who was making a pilgrimage across some area of Russia. On his 40th birthday, he went out and he's like, I'm going to show everybody how young I am. I'm going to run 10 miles. He usually was running 5. If you're a runner at all, that's a big no-no to jump 50% in your distance. He was an avid skier. He'd had a really bad ski accident in his knee. I don't even know which knee it was because of this story, which you'll see. At any rate, he's out running. He got out about 5 miles. Knee starts locking up. And he'd been searching. He'd had friends, the ones who introduced him to my mom, who'd been witnessing to him. He was reading this book about this pilgrim. And one of the things this Russian pilgrim would do was to see how many times per day on his journey he could say, have mercy on me, or Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And so he just started saying this in cadence to his run. He was out on the railroad tracks, way out of town. There's no cell phones, and this would have been 78, I think. He's just out there. He's like, my knee goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's going along like this for a little bit. And, what he's saying really starts to sink in. And he goes, God, if you're real, heal my knee. It was instantly just boom, which is why I don't know which knee it was, because he never had a knee problem again for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Very pragmatic guy, pretty authoritarian in a sense, my way or the highway. And this, I think, is the only way that he would have been convinced, right? This is what God needed to do in his life.
Yep.
At any rate, married my mom soon after, was like, this boy's got to be raised on a farm, sold his, pretty successful wrought iron railing business, bought a farm, 60 acres outside of town. And that's where I grew up. And that's kind of the backstory of these. My mom came out of more of the hippie drug culture. My dad, wrought iron railing, heavy drinking, promiscuous, all things. They'd both been married previously. My dad had a daughter from that. She's probably 20-ish years older than I am. Maybe not quite. And so I grew up with this kind of new Christian, fresh fire, very conservative, because they're like, we want nothing to do with the world. And so I grew up, no TV. Obviously, there was no drinking. My dad, he was drinking into his early Christian life, would come into church with a hangover and was like, oh my gosh, I've got to do something about this. And again, he prayed and God just took that from him.
Took it away.
Obviously that's another miracle in his life. But never touched a drop. I never heard the man swear, never touched a drop of alcohol. He had plenty of issues. Sure. There's still some of that addictive mentality there, in terms of kind of the alcoholic archetype, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I had to deal with that. But by and large, you know, his life was majorly changed, and that had a radical effect on me and my siblings because we went to the farm, we were homeschooled. Church was our primary outlet through that time. He got rid of the TV at some point in my first year of life because he's like, I can't stop watching it. I've got this addictive personality, kicked it to the curb. Right. And so grew up pretty sheltered in that. But through that time, ton of scripture, a lot of work on the farm. That's where I developed my work ethic in terms of you just put your head down and go do what needs doing. You know, that wasn't an option. And I've never understood people that don't throw in, or maybe I do a little bit more now, but like for so long, that was the gold standard. I was like, oh man, that's where I think I put some value in that. Like, that's where you got to jump in. That's where you got to just push and go and do these things. He's very independent. So I carry some of that with me. I think that's why I run my own business. Partly that, and partly because I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I mean, that's the shadow side.
Yeah.
Running your own
business
in a sense is, I want to do my own thing, but obviously the weight there can also be heavy. So coming out of that, I struggled. You know, in retrospect, I think I had more learning disabilities than I was aware of. Some of my younger siblings had more profound ones. And so I was kind of left to my own devices as I got older. Like, here's your geometry textbook. Go figure it out. Okay. Geometry did not go well. Let's just say that. Right. I don't know if I made it all the way through geometry. Yeah. Saving grace. So I learned to read a little bit later. I think I was 9. Because we didn't have any television, that was one of my primary ways to explore the world, was through reading. And so we'd hit the library once or twice a week. No, I think we'd go every couple of weeks, and I'd check out, 15 books and just plow through them about all kinds of stuff. A lot of fiction, but a lot of historical fiction and just all kinds of things. And so I just read voraciously throughout my youth and high school. And then my dad could always figure out just about anything that he needed to on the farm. So he would repair all the machinery, and I'd work with him on repairing the baler and repairing the grain elevator and repairing this tractor, that piece of farm machinery. So it got pretty handy there, felt very strong about my physical aspects. With school, I felt stupid, primarily on the math and science kinds of things. Like, my reading comprehension was off the charts. I think I took the ACT when I was 16. I think my math was like a 17. But my reading was like a 35 out of, 36. So reading comprehension, very high. The other stuff was pretty median. But my brain just doesn't do math well. Touch on maybe why that is later on. I ended up going to school, community college, and realized, I'm not a complete idiot. I actually enjoyed that a lot more than I did high school, having teachers and doing all of that. I got great grades. I had to take some remedial stuff with math. But yeah, it was like, okay, here we go. And then when I was 17, ended up going to summer camp with the Assemblies of God down in Central Illinois, Arlenville, and felt the call to ministry, the call to something deeper. At 17, I'm casting around going, what do I do? I was fairly sheltered, so I didn't have a sense of a ton of stuff. I wasn't like completely obsessed with it either. It was just kind of, in passing, and we're just kind of thinking about it. I was like, I don't think I really want to do carpentry. I don't want to stay on the farm. Those aren't things that I'm interested in. And I remember sitting in the service there and God really speaking to my heart and being like, I want you to love people. It's always been a struggle. It's easier for
Mm-hmm.
me to focus on the projects and the doing than it is to stop and focus on relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not unfriendly by any means, but sorry. It's it's easier, project metrics are easier to tick off than
Right.
the gray instances of dealing with people and discipleship and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. Projects don't have feelings, so they're, they're a
Yeah.
little bit easier to manage. So
Well, yeah, and I
you've
think
got that. Yeah.
yeah. So I think a lot of men struggle with that. You got metrics for how well you're doing at work. You don't get a whole lot of metrics for how well you're doing with your fifth grader or your
Uh-huh.
wife, aside from like, these very fuzzy kinds of things.
Yeah, it's more
Uh,
intangible, and I think that touches on where, you know, um, men want to feel successful in what they do, right? They don't want to feel like a failure, don't want to feel like an idiot, don't want to feel like, incapable. Kind of that
mm,
internal question of, do I have what it takes? And if you're consistently in situations where you don't know the answer to that question, it makes you avoid, either subconsciously or consciously avoid that situation. So you kind of thrust yourself into areas where that question can be answered yes. So no, I get that. So and then God calls you to love people. So there you are. You're like, oh man.
yeah, well, I was like, well, I guess that means I need to do ministry. And we'd been pretty small churches through my high school. I'd grown up till I was about 9, um, in the more Chicagoland area, and we were at a very large church there, Calvary Temple in Naperville, which is now Calvary Church. But we moved farther south when I was 9, 10, and attended a Lutheran church for a couple of years. Ended up at a small Assemblies of God church, which is the same denomination that we'd been at there. It's Pentecostal, but not overly so, we'll say.
Sure.
Right? There's not snake handling, but there may be a message in tongues and an interpretation during the
Hmm.
service, right? That's kind
Hmm.
of but it's pretty orderly. No one's
Yeah.
like running rings around the outside.
Oh, see, I
So
grew up in a
in
church where
terms of,
they were running rings. A little less order in my Pentecostal upbringing, but that's all right.
right, right, there's just like a spectrum of like intellectual to experiential,
Right.
and
Yep.
this was like, it leaned experiential, but
Sure.
not to the exclusion of other things.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was my background. And in that experience, I was like, well, there's youth pastors and worship pastors and senior pastors. And I don't want to be these two. So I guess it's
Hmm.
a youth pastor. Let's do it. I mean, I was 17. That was my primary deal. So I was like, well, I guess I go to, one of the schools. There's Central Bible College in Springfield. Central Bridal College is what they nicknamed it, because that's where many people of our denomination, young people, went and got married.
Hmm.
There's North Central Bible College in Minnesota, and then there's Evangel, which is also in St. Louis, I believe, or Springfield, somewhere in that kind of southern Illinois, Missouri kind of range. Springfield, Missouri, yeah. So I went and visited up in Minnesota. I was more drawn there, and that seemed cool. At this point, I was in community college. My parents had left our little church and had gone back to the mega church, which was like a 45-minute drive.
Hmm.
Um, my dad would get into arguments or just disagree and then just leave. No conversations. This was kind of his MO. This had happened several times throughout our life. That's why we left the first time. That's why we left the Lutheran church. That's why they left this one. And the last time I was of age, and I was like, well, I'm not going. I'm staying put. And if I do leave, I'm gonna leave right. But as my parents were there for a while, I was like, okay, I think it's time to move on. But I said goodbye. And that's something that I've tried to emulate, is if you're going to leave a place, leave without, please say goodbye.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I struggle with avoidance, but that's untenable. We've got to focus into that. At any rate, I was back at this church. There was a leadership deal. I was in leadership with the youth group there, and a woman named Jeannie Mayo came down, and she was a youth pastor up in Rockford, Illinois, and she came and spoke. And I don't really remember what she said. I don't think she gave an altar call. I went forward because I was in the habit of going forward and saying, God, whatever you have for me, I'm in. And I heard him say, I want you to go to Master's Commission. I was like, what? Oh, that's that place where they do human videos. Because I'd seen these guys. I'd got their
Right.
magazine for years. I'd see
Uh-huh.
them at like down in Springfield, Illinois at the youth convention, and they were up there, And I liked human videos just fine. Everybody in the 90s did,
Sure.
It's when you're acting out like a song.
That was the thing. Yep.
Carmen the Champion. Ah,
Yep.
there's all kinds of either fight sequences, or it wasn't as much dancing as much as it was kind of like mime without face paint, but with like a lot of
Yes.
passion. You kind of mouth the words, and there were like actions and things depending on the kind you did. And that's what I knew about them. I was like, oh, I'd had a girlfriend who had applied and been turned down. I was like, what the heck? What this is weird. And so for 4 months, I just argued with God about it. I was like, no, I'm going up to Minnesota to be a youth pastor. He's like, no, you're going to go to this place. So after 4 months, I was like, wow, I guess this isn't just my own idea. I guess this is God saying he wants me to do this. So I need to figure it out and raise some money, I guess. So I went to work, as a maintenance man for a trailer home park. It was super fun. Oh my gosh.
I can imagine.
So I worked there for 9 months and raised, I don't know how much it was. That would have been in 1998 and 99. No, 1999, fall of 1999. So I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000 for a year. And that included like room and board and food. Oh, the good times, right?
Yeah.
I think gas was 97 cents. Literally like eat for a week on $12 if you were frugal. Yep. It was just good times back in 99.
Yeah.
So I ended up at Master's Commission. But that's been the origin story. And then it was sorting out like, well, where in this church? I'd have been a terrible youth pastor. Just I'm relational, but I'm not that relational. And I found in the creative bent and then some of the missions stuff. I ended up running our missions program, sending students on missions trips all over the world. We would run 8 to 12 missions trips a year. And I ran that for several years in addition to like a weekly touch point where we would provide kind of like this experiential situation where you'd come in and you never knew what was going to happen, but you're like in your missions team. You chose a team, and then we would do team building exercises and or knowledge about things around the world. So, and we would put them through all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of a combination of like fear factor, team building, some kind of ridiculous game show, skits, monologues from missionaries, and then like really intense prayer times, right, for people around the world. That's how we usually ended it. And so that was all very formative for me. And I, stepped away, was a little burned out on ministry at that point, needed to find my own way in a sense, and ended up here in Kansas where, I don't know, there's been a lot of healing. I feel like it's real easy for people who have gone through some of these things to put all the blame on some program that they signed up and paid to go for, and then it's all their fault. That I don't know what. I know that there's a number of people out there that are pretty salty about church hurt and all the things. Yeah, there's going to be hurt. Just
So
like there's family hurt, and there's boyfriend and girlfriend hurt, and people hurt, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That the whole church hurt is a hot topic right now. And, I'm not a fan of that term, but whatever, we'll not go there. At least not right now. So the transition, at least the transition out of full-time ministry. I think somebody who's called into ministry has a ministry heart. You're never called out of ministry. It's just a matter of,
No.
is this where I'm getting my income from or not? Right? There's a vocational aspect of it, and then there's just a life purpose aspect from it, where you're like, yeah, I'm never called. I may be stepping out of a full-time vocational position, but I'm never called to stop being a minister. So some of that for you sounds like a little messy and a little unclear during that whole transition. What are some of the things that you wrestled with internally during that transition time?
I was feeling very trapped at the church. We had adopted our son, and my wife had stepped away. She was working either at the church or at the high school. There's a K through 12 school attached to the church that kind of ran as like a side-by-side organization. And so I was supporting our family. Things were very go, go, go at the church, which I knew and kind of had thrived on. That kind of reactionary culture throughout my young adulthood. But as I got a little bit older and was like, oh man, things are running a little tighter here without two incomes. I ended up in counseling and started to unpack some of my own things and why was it that I felt such a need to please people? Why was it that I had such a hard time saying no? Why was it that I struggled with the confidence to go to even, ask for a raise, to talk about my needs, to whether it's true or not, it felt like we had a culture of not talking about money. I don't know if that's true or not. I know I didn't talk a lot about money. I didn't know what anyone else made. I think most places are kind of like that, but and so through counseling, it started to build a little bit more self-efficacy, right? As a person, my talents were always very much lauded within the place because I was a talented and creative individual. But I felt, I don't know, my internal confidence to like move beyond that wasn't super high. Because for years, I'd mostly been like, well, what's the fire that we're putting out today? Or like, what's the next major event that we're now planning in 2 days? And that was just the culture, and I knew it. And so it was coming to grips with going, this place isn't going to change. So I can either be bitter about it and stay, I can accept it and stay, or I can say I'm getting off the boat or the merry-go-round, whatever you want to call it. It was a bit of like cyclical. Like we'd have a lot of the same events years, and we knew which ones were going to be a little bit crazy and whatever. And so for a couple of years there, it was real easy for me to blame everything on like all my issues are from them. And, it's this culture that is just weighing me down and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't great to be around at home. I was stressed out, but felt trapped there, right? I hadn't finished a degree. I was making okay money as a graphic designer, kind of in addition to some of the other things that I was doing, but graphic design was the primary thing at that point. I'd moved from the program with college students to working for the church proper as a graphic designer, and actually didn't love that. It was okay, but I really missed the interactions. I had interns that would usually come out of that program. And so I was still doing some discipleship, mentoring, and training, which, I still have relationships with a lot of those guys and gals all over the country as a result. But I was just feeling the weight of that. And so going through counseling, there was, I don't know, building up of my confidence to go, okay, one, it's okay to ask. We can ask for what we need. We're worth that. Two, if they say no, it's okay. You're not trapped. And that was a big step, right? Because I was like, well, if we ask and they say no, then I'm opposed, right? So I'm just not going to ask. which is kind of like, it was the exact conversations that I would have with myself about my dad, who was emotionally erratic. I never knew what I was going to get from him when I would ask. You have that scripture where it's like, is not God a good father? And if you ask him for, or no, like our fathers, even though our fathers are not God, if we ask them for bread, are they going to give us a stone? If we ask them for a fish, are they going to give us a stick or a snake or whatever? You know, ask for something good, are we going to get something bad? And with my dad, it's just, I didn't know the emotional response he was going to give because he was very erratic. You know, he may have been fine, or he may have been upset, he may have been whatever. So the same way I overlaid that on my relationship with God, I overlaid that on some of my authority figures, because on the farm is actually the same kind of thing. I never knew what was going to happen day to day. My dad was fairly erratic. At the church, it wasn't erratic as much as it was like kind of go, go, go. I just didn't have a lot of unction in terms of like what we were going to do on a day-to-day basis. And when I would try to plan ahead, it would always get shot to pieces because some event last minute would come up. But that's what we were there paid to do. So I thrived in that for a long time until I didn't. Yeah. So I started having conversations going, okay, hey, this is kind of what I need for these next steps. Through that, kind of felt out where things were at. And it was like, okay, I don't know that this is going to work on a long-term basis. And so started my own design business kind of side by side as I worked there at the church and built that up. Stepped away without, I didn't leave, with any kind of manifesto about abuse or whatever, right? I really did cherish the relationships and still do to this day, because I learned so much and I took so much from that time. It was time. It was time. And then transitioned into my own deal. But I did wrestle, with the idea of like, should so much money go to a media department? Should whatever? And I came to grips with going, I'm not running the church. It's not my deal. And if I don't agree with it, I don't have to take the money. I don't have to do whatever. And it was just, it was all over the place. Some of it was about just comparison, being able to see the dollar amounts going to specific things, and then, struggling with groceries. And that was, it took me a while to work through some of those pieces. And if you're looking for something to be bitter about, you'll usually find it. If you're looking for imperfections to find, you'll find them. But fortunately, over time, I don't know, I came back to the point of going, well, these are people. They're going to be imperfect. This is the culture. This is the way it's going to run. And I can bless it without being in it and be a part of it at this point.
Yeah, I think there's an important distinction that you made, that like when you're faced with situations like that, you can have an opinion about it, or you can have influence over the situation. And often people get those two confused, right? Having an opinion about something versus having influence. And just because you have an opinion doesn't mean it's going to influence anything in the situation. So, but people feel like their opinion creates influence. And you see that all over social media nowadays. People just kind of vomiting their feelings and emotions and opinions, thinking that it's causing something, but it's doing nothing but create a toxic environment. And when you internalize those opinions yet have no influence in the situation, all that does is toxifies you. So then it brings it back to this personal situation, and you go, okay, well, I'm not powerless in this situation. So I can make a decision in this moment to go, I'm not agreeing with this personally. I don't have any influence over the external circumstances, but I do over my own life. So I'm going to remove myself from the situation. And that's the healthiest thing I think you can do. But I do believe people really confuse opinion and influence all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah,
so
you
stepping
want,
out of that, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, it's so easy to confuse strong feelings with influence when they just having an opinion it doesn't give you the chips, doesn't give you chips on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. So you stepped out and kind of ventured into this massively creative period in your life where you were, starting slash building a business. Your job in
Mm.
its nature is creative, Um, so in your opinion, what does it mean for a man to create something, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, at a deep level and even theologically, because you watch, and if we go back to Genesis, Adam had work before the fall, right? He
Correct.
was to name all the animals. Um, but then after the fall, work took on a different sense, but work didn't come because of the fall. It just became harder.
Right.
The ground,
Yes.
the ground struggled against him.
Yep.
Yeah. The ground hardened itself.
He was
I've got a weed that
opposed.
I'm slowly
Yeah.
hacking out, I've been literally setting up like CrossFit, like interval training, and I'll like work for a minute with my pickaxe and then like pick up the pieces for 30 seconds and then work. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. The ground is struggling against me.
Yeah.
But to build something, I think there's an aspect of that that really does align with who God is, right? Because the creator was his first title as he connected with us, as he built the earth, is for 6 days.
Right.
He made things that were good. And so I think all of us as men have that same call to be building something. That doesn't necessarily need to be your own business. Um, Sometimes it's building the culture of your family.
Right.
Sometimes it's changing the culture of your workplace, or the people that are your subordinates, or the people that are your coworkers. There's all kinds of things, in the same way that all of us were creative in certain ways. Some people are more creative accountants. I mean, I get
Hmm.
blamed for creative accounting, but that's a whole different, so that's something that we try to deal with the lawyers about, right?
Right.
Uh, No, fortunately, we've never had lawyers. I just have to have my accountant sort everything else out every year. Um, but yeah, there's a deep thing there that does connect us back to Him through that creation, and in building something that sustains us, that provides for our families, that provides fulfillment.
Hmm.
Is odd. I was like, did I lose my calling and stepping away? I was like, ultimately, I'm called to support my family, and I'm not able to do that at the church here. Just hard, you know.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's always the case with every church, or probably even that church. It just circumstances were what they were for me, and so I knew
Hmm.
that was the next right step. Didn't know exactly how things would play out. I don't know if I'll ever be in full-time vocational ministry again. Maybe. Never say never, right? But I know that if I'm open to the Spirit's leading, that He'll use me wherever, whether that's working with the clients that I work with, whether it's working with the people who come to the men's ministry at church, which is kind of one of our open doors to get people plugged in and to make friends. It's harder for men to make friends after college because we're just not around as many people.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we at the church is really focused on. But yeah, that building, yeah, it connects us with God in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I think that's an important part of, I've always said this to myself, and I don't know if it's just an agreement or not, but, and I was thinking about it as I was planning, some questions for what I was going to ask you. I've always said that I'm not a creative, right? But I think
Mm,
what I mean by that is the way I define a creative is an artist or somebody who can create beautiful things. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I am a creative because I create systems. I create processes. I create I create things that run efficiently. I create a family
yep.
dynamic. I like there are all of these
Mm,
things that I think I do create that draw me to draw me into the character of God in that aspect of like, oh, I am a creator. If God was a creator, that was his first role, and I'm made in his image, I am a creative as well.
hmm
Sometimes I just have to shift my focus to what has God called me in this season to create, to give that energy
mm,
towards. I think that's an important distinction to realize. At least that was personally for me.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think accepting that, it's like, it's that parable where the king is like, here, you get 10 bags and you get 5 bags and you get 1 bag. And what are you going to do with the talents that you were given? Well, the
Hmm.
talents are ultimately his. And so it's real easy to wrap our identity too tightly into the doing and into the building and into the creating versus just going, well, am I just doing the best with what I've been given for his
Hmm.
glory? And my identity ultimately comes from being a child of God, from
Hmm.
being someone that's connected. And all of this, what Paul says, I think it's the King James, is just a light and momentary trouble.
Hmm.
You know, light and momentary trouble. Right. I mean, we've
Yeah.
all gone through stuff and we're like, this is not light. It doesn't feel momentary and it feels like it's going on forever.
Right.
It
Right.
it hasn't been all sun and rainbows. We've been up and down. Being self-employed means you can take as much vacation as you can afford. And I have not been able to afford a whole lot of vacation over the last
Hmm.
decade. Not nearly as
Hmm.
much I'd like, my family would like. But it's been good and it's built and I've learned as I've gone and but I just try to hold it loosely as
Hmm.
going on. This best as I can see. It seemed right to them. I think it says that in Acts somewhere.
Hmm. Right.
It's like they prayed about it and it seemed right to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the best we can do. It seemed like this is the next best step.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think when I when I think of, our mission here and then like the next best step for you, what's one of the areas you're still
Yeah.
working on personally as a man? What is an area that you're like, yeah, this is an area I still give much attention to, much focus. This is an area that I know I need to continue to grow in.
Yeah. Um Consistency. It's is a two-edged sword to being creative. Being creative means you think outside the box, you see things in a way that other people don't, you solve problems in a different way. But it also means that I struggle with rhythms and routines and doing anything consistently, right? It means I struggle with maintaining systems, great at coming up with systems, continuing to, excuse me, continuing to live in them day to day is a struggle.
Hmm.
For much of my adult life, getting up at the same time, having the same time with God has been a struggle. Going to bed at the same time has been a struggle. And in some ways, I felt like just a failure. I've had anger, I've had shame about that, about being unable, it seems, to move past this seemingly adolescent place. Recently, the help of my wife, um, recognized certain pieces of ADHD that I just had always just blown off, but made sense. Is like, I don't know, some of the pieces came together there. So there's little bit of impulse control issues there. And I don't have the hyperactivity. I can sit down and work on something for 5 hours in a row. So I'm like, well, I don't have attention deficit.
Hyper focus.
Yeah. I do have hyper focus. That is hyper focus to the, perhaps to the exclusion of lots of other important things, frankly. And so the issue with that is, executive dysfunction. And so knowing, like, being able to prioritize what should happen when, I can really struggle with that, especially in my personal life. And then my working RAM, like my working memories, just my short-term memory is just a little shorter. Long-term memory is fine, but I can only carry so many things in my head at once. So I just have to write down a lot of things and then review those things, because I have to almost have an external short-term memory. This literally says short-term memory can be. And that just sits in my pocket so I can write things down that I will not remember later. But then I have to remember to review that. I have to remember to act on it. And so coming to grip with going, oh, I'm not just lazy, because there's like all this proof that obviously I'm not a lazy person, but my mind will let me down in certain areas. And being able to build systems to help with that, to realize, like, while I don't naturally lean into routine and consistency, that is so important to be able to almost build a structure, a scaffold for my mind to work in. And so that when it's time to unleash creative energy, it's happening in the right time instead of at like 2 a.m. After I've, scrolled on Instagram for 2 hours. I'm like, well, let's just go work now. That means I'm going to be shot for the next 2 days, right? So maintaining some of that consistency and putting those things together. It's been huge trying to tackle cognitive distortions, just misbeliefs about, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. Even, I even mentioned one before, like, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. Well, the problem with that is that I don't like tasks telling me what to do. So they'll be like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I'm not doing that. Well, you do that for a week, and guess how many tasks you have? A lot.
Right.
Guess where all the overwhelm comes from? Huge pile of tasks that you told aren't the boss of you. Okay, well, guess who doesn't have their taxes ready to be filed? This guy. Why? Because I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Great. So my accountant gets to file a, whatever you call that, deferred tax payment, blah, 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 blah. And so file the extension and go on. I mean, there's real world ramifications when we kick the can down, right? Which, I mean, I'm 47. And so it's real easy for me to come down to myself as this shameful, lazy child and to like, just feel that weight. But that's not how God sees me. And if I am internally berating myself for being that, when it's not really there, it's really more of a mental deficiency, and the energy shouldn't be going into building a case of shame against myself, and needs to be going into a system of going, okay, well, maybe this task is the boss of me. So it's shifting, literally shifting some of the mindsets that are so nasty, just twisted inside of ourselves. And so that's one that I'm working on right now, that I've seen, and literally like this morning, that became more apparent to me, going, I mean, it's kind of like, duh, but we're so blind to some of our own things,
Well, and
Don't
I think
point out the fact that someone die when you have a log of your own. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can take some of that and make it a negative motivator, right? Like, it can, calling yourself a selfish child or irresponsible child or whatever. I think many men that I talk to, myself included, can use shame as a negative motivator instead of pushing yourself to a positive motivator in your life, going, okay, what can motivate me, like, to truly change, instead of shaming myself into action?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, shame moves the needle, right? But it doesn't always move it in the right ways, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be unsustainable, like it's definitely not doesn't come from a healthy place, and it's unsustainable because the more, the healthier mindset you get into, the less you like to shame yourself. And if that was your only motivation to move, well, how am I going to move now? I've got to figure out a healthy way to do it, or come with systems or structure or whatever to set it out in my life and actually make a change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what seems to happen is that with so many things, the power of shame, it's it's not great long term. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a great long term source, right? Because
Correct.
we just go numb to it, and we literally just stop caring.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen that in different places in my life. Like, I'm too tired to care about this. Like, I should feel ashamed about this, and I don't even care, right? And that gets to be a very dangerous place because, dang, we don't even have that. But that is ultimately where we'll end up if that's the only reason we have to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah, because it takes a lot of mental and emotional energy. And by the time you spend it all doing that, you're just exhausted, and the apathy creeps in, and it's just like, whatever. I don't care, which creates another shame cycle because the apathy kicks in, you don't take care of it. And then all of a sudden there's something to be done, and you're ashamed again or shaming yourself again. And here we go again around the same cycle.
Yep.
So what does integration look for you right now? Like, what does it look like for you in your world? Like, going, okay, I'm taking these parts of my world, and I'm trying to make myself a more connected man, a more present man, a more aware man, whether it's business, family, fathering, whatever it is. What does that look like for you right now? Your walk with Christ, and how are you actively trying to integrate all those things together?
Well, I know it's, as I understand the limitations of my own brain and psyche better, then I can build support systems to help those more. It helps, letting people know that I struggle with this, I struggle with that. Talking through some of those things versus just being like, I'm fine. Letting my wife know where she can support me. That's huge. I know putting a focus on consistency, it's real easy. I mean, I am predisposed to be dismissive of the mundane, right? The last thing I want to do is wash dishes. And I don't think about it while I'm doing it. And so I generally do a really crappy job, right? And I'll like my wife makes fun of me all the time because I'll be like washing dishes, but I am not there. And so it's real easy for that kind of thing to bleed into different areas. But I know when I'm focused, when I can take on this idea of the mundane is key, to embrace the mundane is really, really key, that there's an importance to that there's an importance to going through the super boring stuff, that I'm really setting my day up to get up at the same time, to sit down and journal on my iPad. It's easiest for me to type. I can type about it almost as fast as I can think at this point, much faster than I can handwrite. And so that's the easiest way for me to pray. I know that's key, is to just be dialoguing about what's happening inside with God, as well as, intercession, petition, those other parts of prayer that are also important. It's key for me to be moving every day, to be helping my son move every day, to be doing, both these things. That's really key for me. So knowing's only part of it, but then setting myself up to win in those ways, and then letting there be other places for more open-ended creativity. Every area of our life doesn't need to have this novel, open-ended deal. If so, then we're just leaking creative energy all over the place, just like a transmission line has just been severed. And we're going to be exhausted at the end of the day because we tried to be creative with the way we brush our teeth and creative in the way that we ate our smoothie. And oh my gosh, no, you don't need to be creative in these other areas. Really, it's not beneficial to be creative in most of the mundane tasks of the day. And we just need to embrace them as so important to the structure that enables creativity in the proper places where it belongs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely structure. I'm a big, you know me, we've worked together. I'm a big advocate of structure and process. And I definitely think it does, like you said earlier, the scaffolding, right? It's the support system that creates the ability in your life to reach higher, and to build something that needs external support when it's not there. So yeah, big fan of structure for me. So, well, hey, I like to wrap up every podcast with asking 3 questions. Give me the top influences in your life right now.
Let me see. Let me look up a couple of these. He hasn't been active in a little while. He's just been sick, but Jordan Peterson has been a huge influence in shaping some of the ways that I look at the world. In addition, I mean, a lot of what we talked about here could very much be defined or found in his teachings about fighting apathy. I think every young man should listen to his podcast, and there's enough out there that you can go through the backlog. I'm also, from a business standpoint, been listening to Smart Passive Income podcasts, and that's with oh gosh, where is his name? Pat Flynn is his name.
Okay.
Oops. I just started in the background. Apologize about that.
Right.
Those are 2. Another one is Pia Silva. It's just she's a entrepreneur and course creator and cohort creator for creating 1 or 2 person no BS agencies in the creative space. So all 3 of them have pretty influential on the business side of things. Well, Jordan on the spiritual side as well.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
then I don't know. My pastors have been huge. The Hope Chapel Olathe on YouTube. We've been going through this series on prayer that's been incredible. So that's been great. Yeah. So those are some recent influences.
All right. I know you're also a well-read man. Give me 1 book. I'm going to make you keep it to 1. 1 book that has changed your life.
Oh gosh. There's so many good ones out there.
Right?
Here, I'm just going to pull this up just so I get the name right. So the E-Myth is still one of the most foundational books that I've read in regards to starting my own business and how your personality is going to be your business as you start it off yourself. So there's a newer version called the E-Myth Revisited. It's by Michael E. Gerber. And that one is so good. So good.
Yeah. I know when you were talking earlier about creativity at 2 a.m., I was about to say you're going to have where he talks about an entrepreneurial seizure. You have a creative seizure at 2 a.m. It's like, I got to do all these things.
Oh,
that's great. No, I've read that book as well. Such a great book on business, but also identity and how you're wired as a business person and picking out which one you're strong at. Right now you have to do all 3, but which one you're strong at. I think it's a great, solid book. So, well, man, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship. And I know it's going to be some good content, and hopefully we'll help some people in some areas of their life they need to grow. We've talked all over the page, but I think it's great. I think it's going to be good content for people. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Corey. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, you bet. Well, if you guys watching or listening want to find out more information, theintegratedman.life is our website, and we'll have some information about the people to follow and the books that Aaron recommended. We'll put those in the show notes. So if that's something of interest to you, you can link to it. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next podcast.